G'day, it's Jamie and welcome to Where's My Yowie. Today I'm reading an old newspaper article about a couple of Yowie sightings that happened near Cowra in 1876. So we'll get into it. This was published in the Sydney Evening News, dated Tuesday the 14th of November 1876. Titled, What Was It? Our Melbourne Creek correspondent, under date November 11th, writes as follows. Who have not heard from the earliest settlement of the colony, the Aboriginals speaking of some unearthly animal or inhuman creature that inhabited some of the wildest, inaccessible, rugged and sequestered haunts of rocky mountains and gorges in the colony, namely the Yahoo Devil or the Hairy Man of the Wood, which to this day they stand in fearful awe and terror of. I, for one, sympathise with the superstitions, or Aboriginal sayings, of those wild and unsophisticated denizens of the Australian bush, that their Aboriginal tradition of such unearthly mongrels of monsters have and do now exist, though so rare and not yet as often seen or believed in by white men. 14 days ago, and not more than 10 miles from here, towards the head of the Lachlan River on Hammond's Coolamba Station, in one of the most secluded and melancholy looking spots imaginable, imperceptibly a terror of awe creeps over every one that have to pass through this far and wide known gorge or death chasm of the river. While a lad of the name of Porter, a son of Porter, a settler on the Lachlan, was shepherding a flock of his father's sheep near to the dismal rocky bridge or gorge, as so called, an inhuman, unearthly looking being was seen by the lad coming directly towards him from the high, rugged and precipitous rocks. The dogs, on observing such an unknown monster, would not attack, became timid and crouched around the lad's legs, who became horror-struck with fear. He left the sheep to their fate and ran, together with his collies, for home. On relating the inhuman sight he had seen, which was not credited by the father and others at home, they, however, at last mustered courage and went to the exact place described, but could find or see nothing of the hairy man. On last Saturday, however, a fishing party of young men and young women went to the Rocky Bridge waterholes for a night's sport. These waterholes are famed far and near for quality and quantity of fish. It is customary for those bent for good sport to remain for the night, and, as a matter of course, a large fire is made. On the evening of this memorable day, 2 hours before sundown, the young men and some of the women went to set their lines, leaving one of their young friends to boil a billy and prepare supper. While engaged, the young woman was suddenly startled by observing a man, as she naturally imagined at first sight, was one of their own party coming towards the fire, but on walking closer, discovered the appearance to be unsightly and inhuman, bearing in every way the shape of a man with a big red face, hands and legs covered over with long shaggy hair. From fright became almost spellbound, screamed and screeched, but unable to run. The men, on hearing such unearthly cries, left their fishing lines and ran with all speed towards their comrade. On reaching the fire, the monster of alarm was only distant some 50 yards. On their appearing, it stood for a minute or two and turned away and made for the rocks. Two of the men armed themselves with a tomahawk and cudgel and followed this extraordinary phenomena of nature for a short distance up the rocky and rugged mountain, when suddenly it turned around and stood viewing the men as they were approaching. They also halted, being then about 60 yards from the object of terror, commanding a full view of his whole shape and make, resembling that of a big, slovenly man. The head was covered with dark, grizzly hair, the face with shaggy, darkish hair, the back and belly and down the legs covered with hair of lighter colour. This devil, or whatever it may be called, doubled around and hurriedly made back towards the fire and women again. On seeing him coming, a fearful commotion amongst the females and a kind of supernatural terror among the men took place. In the meantime, before reaching the camp, it sighted away towards the inaccessible Rocky Mount. The names of the men who witnessed and took part in the scene are Porter and Dunn, well-known settlers of the Abercrombie and Lachlan rivers. Mr. Lehner, another settler from the Lachlan, has informed me the other day that the neighbours all round have organised a party to go in search of the human monster and hunt him down, dead or alive. It is not many weeks ago that I recorded the remains of a similar animal or creature being found in the Walla Walla scrub. It is well known to the old settlers for the last 30-odd years that the Aboriginals will never camp within miles of this death-like chasm of the Lachlan, though they come long distances every year to fish on the adjoining waterholes, but leave before sundown to camp miles away. Whether this be the Aboriginals' veritable Yahoo, devil, or the white man's hairy man of the wood, time, it is hoped, will now shortly tell. Well, that was pretty interesting. That's it for me. I'll get back to you all next time. Bye.